Hi there, this is Cece Zach, and if you've worked your entire life, reached this chapter, which I call the third, and found yourself wondering, now what? Well, you are not alone. Because retirement isn't just about what you're leaving, it's about figuring out who you are now and what you want next. This is the Meaningful MEtirement podcast, where we turn uncertainty into clarity and help you create a life filled with joy, fulfillment, and freedom. So let's get into it. And I am just so excited on this episode of Meaningful MEtirement. I have a dear friend and mentor, colleague, someone that has just been with me for so many years of my life. And I'm thrilled to have her on today because she truly is a role model for not only what she did professionally and personally, but what she's doing now in her third around MEtirement. So Charlene Prounis is a dynamic C-level healthcare leader, a two-time HBA star honoree, a Hall of Fame inductee who has built and scaled groundbreaking life sciences and digital health businesses, including co-founding and growing Flashpoint Medica and Excel Healthcare into industry-leading advertising agencies. But what makes Charlene such an exceptional guest is her unwavering make it happen mindset, where she envisions exactly what she wants in life and relentlessly goes after it, coupling sharp strategic thinking and high energy leadership, as well as a deep ability to mobilize others, such as myself, and marking her a powerful voice on creating impact, growth, and a truly intentional life. So, Charlene, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and taking the time to share your story with people.
I'm happy to be here and thank you for having me.
So, let's just jump right into it. And what is your perception of retirement?
Mhm. So retirement's an interesting word, and it's often was a word I didn't like using initially.
Me neither. Can't
I
stand it.
I didn't feel retired. Retired feels like, oh, you stopped, everything now, and you're just gonna garden and take an easy lifestyle. And for me, it was hard to accept that word, and it took time to get there. And I often would say to people, "Well, I no longer work full time, but I do other things." I was on a corporate board for a number of years, and then I joined a lot of different nonprofit boards that we can talk more about. So retirement in that phrase that people are accustomed to using. I really would love another phrase. I haven't come up with one, but I appreciate that you have, Cece, with MEtirement, because you're defining, we all get to define our next phase of life. I think of all of our lives as phases. You're growing up, your young 20s, the early career growth, the family time often, and then the empty nest, and then you kind of start to get to retirement, and that's where I am today. And for me, I think the key has been to you accept where you are and you look to create new things for yourself that equally engage you and fulfill you. So I'm happy where I am today. It's been almost 10 years since I sold my advertising
Has it
agency.
been that long?
Yes, it's 10 years this July. Can you believe it? It's like how time
No.
flies. It really is.
No, and for you listeners out there, Charlene and I were actually working together at that time in the same organization, and so I just can't believe that was 10 years ago.
It's a long
Wow.
time ago. Yes, I sold my agency to Omnicom. You were an executive at Omnicom as well, and from then on, I did different things, but fulfilling things.
In my mind, you have never looked back, and you're such a giving individual, and so it will be really fun to have this conversation. So, is there a defining moment, or was selling your entrepreneurial organization? Was that the defining moment for you for this next phase, or was there something else?
There was something else that, certainly selling my agency was a really big decision, and actually was my husband who helped encourage me to do it. He says, "Well, that they want to buy your company outright. You don't have to do an earn out. They want to merge it with another company. So this is a good time. You should take advantage of this." And I'm like, "Oh, I worked, 30, 40 years, my whole career, like two jobs. I did the work of two people. You know what it's like for us type A personalities." So I did sell it, and then after I sold it, you go through that process of, okay, you sold it, now you're getting ready to actually walk out the door. I walked out the door and I know like within that next month, what did I say to people? I now, well, I sold my agency. Sounds, oh yeah, I felt good about that I created something that someone else wanted to have so much. And now I'm like, but I don't define myself by that anymore. I'm no longer the CEO of a successful agency. I'm just Charlene Prounis. And how do I live with that? And it's a little hard to take at first because your identity so shifts from that corporate persona. And actually, I spoke to somebody else. So who had gone through this myself, something similar, Maureen Reagan, another
Oh, I know. I love Maureen.
Maureen. She was a woman of the year in the HBA. She also was an entrepreneur, had her own agency, built it, sold it, and then stopped working, right? And so what? So I said to her, I said, how do you manage this identity shift? Because I was struggling with that. And she goes, you have to just realize that you achieved what you wanted to achieve. You probably have achieved more than many people. And you have so accept that you reached the pinnacle of your world. And that is gives you the gratification to be like, let's say, self-actualized on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so once you accept that, you say, I achieved what I wanted to achieve, I made it, and making it is whatever that level is for you in your world. And then just say, that's good. I can now take it easy. You're not resting on your laurels. There's other things that one does and moves on to do different things, but you can feel that sense of acceptance of yourself as just who you are now. Because I'm now introduced as Charlene, not as the CEO. So it was a challenge, that insight, and I remember being very upset by it. But she really helped me, Maureen. And I forever will be grateful for that conversation.
So, Charlene, as you entered into this realization, or I should say before that, was there an emotion you felt, or how did you feel when you knew that you were letting go? Is there some way to describe that where right before you had the conversation with her and then that self actualization? Can you just walk us through like how it made you feel and then what did you release in all of that?
What happened to me is that as I left the company, there was no retirement party, let's say. They asked me if I wanted
Ah.
one. And I said, I'm not really retiring. Maybe I'm gonna go work for my daughter. She was just starting her new jewelry business. I might do something different. But I kind of just walked out the door and said goodbye, and that was kind of it. It was very um, flat. And I remember like one day just saying, I'm a nobody now. Like, and I remember like being very upset and like having a hysterical moment and really being hurt by this. Like other people, no one's rushing to call you to tell you how wonderful you are and everything else. And I remember speaking to someone. She goes, "Well, post on LinkedIn how you who you are and what happened and not what happened, but like how you moved on and now you're in your next phase of life, and then people will comment on you and that might make you feel good." And I did do that so that I could control the narrative versus the other company, which did not put out a press release thanking someone for growing the company that they just bought. I was like kind of like sidetracked. I was like, I was an afterthought to them. So I took it upon
That must have
myself
been
to,
absolutely devastating, though. I'm putting myself in your shoes.
yes, it was devastating because it's one thing to say you're taking one company and merging it with another, but not to recognize the person who grew that company and made it a blue chip top agency that you would even want to have. That's the emotion. Like, you're successful, you made the money that they, gave to you to buy the company, but you still feel like, oh, you don't need me now. Oh, well then what? Now what? So that really hurt me. It hurt me a lot, and I remember just sobbing one day over this, talking to my friend on the phone over it, and pulling myself together, and then speaking to like calling Maureen, saying, "How did you manage through this? What did you do?" And that's where your friends or peers can be very supportive to move through that very much identity crisis that one has. It is a bit of it was a crisis. Let me call it that. Mhm.
Oh, thank you for being so vulnerable. I have to say, what came up for me just now, and this is not about me though, was my divorce. When I was not recognized for the 18 years we were together, and all of a sudden I felt like a dirty dish towel that I had just been thrown out in the garbage when my ex told me that marriage was over.
Mhm.
But the key in all this, well, first of all, again, thank you for your vulnerability. But the key in all this is that you very quickly picked up, and I'm assuming it's the conversation with your friend Maureen that really kind of made that shift. And then Where were you emotionally after that shift? Where did you shift to, and what was that like? What did that bring into your life?
You know, I've said to myself, well, you know how I like to feel like, well, I'll show you.
Yeah, 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 you and I are very similar that way. Yes, yes.
Show you, right?
Yep, yep.
I'm gonna work with my daughter, we're gonna become successful jewelers, and, that didn't pan out because she really wanted to run her own company by herself.
Thanks, mom, but no thanks.
I remember going on her first logo meeting with her, like, 2 months after I had stepped down working, and no, she took me with her to her brand planner, and I had thoughts to say and this to say, and she wanted to control the meeting, and I thought, "Oh, she's in control, it's her business, and she
Yep.
doesn't really need me, so I better just manage on my own." And then sometimes, things a little bit of luck happens, whatever. Just your LinkedIn profile that's out there, which I hadn't really maximized in any way, was just what I had. But somebody found me and then asked me about joining a corporate board. That was about 5 months after I stepped down working, and then it took a process of several months to get on the board, and then I was on a corporate board. So, and in fact, it was of a very successful company, W2O, that's now Real Chemistry. And I do remember hearing back from peers like, "Oh, she's on the board over at Real Chemistry now, or W2O at the time," and that made me feel good, like I showed them.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Let me dig in. Well, first of all, congratulations on that because I remember when that happened, and I was just thrilled that your expertise was being used in an area that was needed. The wisdom of what you had been through, and to help them through what they were going through. But I'd like to go back to your shift in your LinkedIn profile because that's not something I did. I was scared to death to let anyone know what I was up to or not up to. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts around that and how did you shape who you were on LinkedIn at that time?
Mm. I wasn't actively thinking about it at the time when the person called me through my LinkedIn profile. I'm trying to remember if I put an end date on my employment at Flashpoint Medica. You
Hmm.
always have to start, and then you go on someone's profile, it looks like they're still working there. I think I put an end date. I went back onto my LinkedIn profile, I updated it saying that, sold my company and now, not working. I didn't say retired, but just said, now not working. And I believe that's what it said. So that was how I changed it. Like I had to I had to feel the courage to change
Yeah.
it because you have to end the date and then you have to say what you're doing now. I mean, people can call themselves consultants, and I didn't see myself consulting for others. I said if I was going to continue to work, I would have just kept working, building the agency even bigger. I wouldn't have left to be a
Right.
consultant. So I didn't put any other name on it, just an explanation that I had sold my agency. So it was just like sold agency, and that's how I left it.
So when you got that message on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
can you remember that moment when it
I
happened
do
and how?
remember. I remember someone, like, emailing me, through LinkedIn, and I'm like, "What is this? What is this about? To be a consultant, to be a board member? What is this company? I never heard of this company." And then we had a talk. So I thought it was like initially I thought it was junk because it was a small consulting company was a private equity company that had contracted with a consulting company who did all kinds of things. Some of it might have been recruiting board members. And so it wasn't a big name, wasn't any name. It was just like somebody else reaching out. So, they emailed me. I'm like, I don't know what this is about. This seems unusual, different. I don't know. I wasn't even thinking being on a corporate board, actually. That hadn't been something I thought through. And then we had a call and it became real. And then I met the people from the private equity group, the people from the management team from from W2O at the time it was called. And then we went through a couple of months of discussions and interviews, and I was brought on the board. And that was exciting, actually. It was really something. I was really I feel like it just happened because what's interesting is that lasted for like 4 years, and then, management changed. I was a corporate board member, then I was a CEO advisory board member, and then after they changed, private equity companies and they moved on, my term ended, and then I thought, "Oh, I'd like to be on another board," or maybe I did private equity consulting a little bit then as well, but it was hard to get on another board. That became a job, actually, and I did realize that. This is another change because now I haven't been on a board in over 4 years, a
A
paid board.
corporate board. Yeah, paid board. Yep.
A paid board. And so now I'm really just do nonprofit board work, but I did try. I mean, I remember doing some board women on boards and getting and learning that it's really all about networking. I was a very well networked person,
The
through all
best in the industry.
through my HBA world,
Yep.
my Medical Advertising Hall of Fame world, just from, having so many clients and everything and speaking and writing. I was well networked, but the network you have to be very active in activating that network and reaching out to people and saying hello and going on so that they can remember you. And I didn't have enough maybe super senior people that are going to be the people that are going to actually connect you for maybe other boards. So I got some private equity consulting gigs, which were nice, but I didn't get on another board within that next year when I was open. And I'm like, that's okay. It's okay. I'm okay. And that's the part where you accept that change, where you're no longer being paid for your expertise. Now you are giving back in the other nonprofit world and things that I do.
So, Charlene, you and I actually have quite a few friends that have been searching or are searching now for to maintain that business, that corporate identity that they had, that executive leadership identity. And they have been targeting for profit boards, and they have not had much success either. Is
Mm.
there anything that you would share with them that, makes them feel like A, they're okay, but B, maybe that their purpose and their destiny is somewhere else?
It could be. I would say that people should try always to challenge themselves to see what they can come up with and do. So I did want to get on another board. I like doing it. It was, it's good work and all. So after you try though, so my recommendations to other people would be to definitely to continue to network because that is the best way to do it. And you really do have to think about expanding your network if you don't have people at the C-suite or in private equity or in venture capital firms who are often the key people who will place you onto boards. So it's really important to play in that world. As active as I was in the HBA world and the Medical Advertising Hall of Fame world, that's not the same people that get you board positions as much. And so you have to kind of expand that network to be in those circles or begin to talk to those people and you keep your name out there. I have some friends who did get on board positions that they were more senior pharma women like Nancy Miller Rich and Meryl
Hmm.
Zausner that I know very well, and Dagmar Bajorkison. They all got on corporate boards because they knew CEO, they were all close to the CEOs at
They're
top pharma companies who then introduced them to someone and someone. And that level of high introduction is what makes it makes a big difference.
And actually, all of those individuals came from big biopharma, as I recall. Yeah. So, yeah. Um, okay. So now you're realizing that you're okay not getting on these corporate boards.
Mhm.
But I know you. You have so much to give. You have so many people to impact, and your compassion and your ability to support other people is just extraordinary, and it never ends. That's like a candle that has always been lit up in you. So take us to where you go next, knowing that your skills are needed somewhere in
Mhm.
this world.
Mhm.
What'd you do next?
Yeah. So one of the things that I tell myself every now and again is that you can do so much, when you can run a company, and you can even be the president of the HBA and really inspire volunteer leaders to do great things. Both of that takes a lot. And I'm like, here I am just, like I do some nonprofit work and I do my tennis, my golf, my travel, and yet I know I could do so much more, right? I really could. If I wanted to create and build a new company, I could, but I don't go too crazy to think like that because the skills that I am giving back now to the nonprofits that I'm engaged with, like I'm on the board at Queensborough Community College, and it's all about helping largely it's a very diverse, fairly lower socioeconomic group of people that go to a CUNY type community college and really helping them to build themselves up so they can get out there and live the American dream, get a good job and graduate and such. So it's a really, it's a good cause. And I lead that board. I'm the chair of the board now. They asked me to stay on for a second term. And
Oh,
we are
that's
looking to
awesome.
do so much, and I'm really working to engage our board so that it's an engaging board, because a lot of people on nonprofits always there's always a few that engage, and then there's a few that just hang out on the sidelines.
That's not you. Never has been. Never
No,
will
not
be.
oh, skip. And then I stay on the floating hospital board as well, and that is a healthcare provider organization in New York City area that used to be a ship, and they used to bring people on the ship for healthcare and social relief and a hot meal or clothes, and now they do it on land in a building that they manage since the boat is no longer navigable, and that is a great organization. They really believe in health equity and do so much to help people, not just with healthcare, but health, mental, dental, even something called life skills. Because you realize that young people, not young, but most of these people are young women with families, haven't learned life skills. They may not have had the parents to teach them how to navigate websites, how to apply to a college, how to get housing or a better ticket to talk to someone to get better housing, etc. And they teach them those life skills, which I find really amazing. So they really fulfill the promise of health equity. I love doing that work. I'm still engaged with the Healthcare Businesswomen's Association through the Constellation League
Yeah.
that CCU started up.
Yeah.
You were the original founder of the Constellation League, which are the senior level volunteer leaders, the stars, the chair emeritus, and such. It's quite a great a group that I continue with. Medical Advertising Hall of Fame. I used to be on that board, but now I'm not because I am retired.
You're
I'll
me
use
tired.
and because I'm now 10 years out, I actually do use that word more and more with people.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that you just often are just asked, so tell me about yourself, right? Well, I don't even say I used to be a CEO of an advertising agency when I introduce myself to people. It's like, it's so beyond me now, right?
Oh, Charlene, that's
Somewhere else.
so beautiful. I mean, you use the word acceptance, and it is something that I will definitely be taking into my coaching practice is helping people recognize the acceptance of what was, what is current, and what should be. But there has been an innate drive in you to help others since the moment I met you. Gosh, it's got to be at least 25 or 30 years since you and I first met. And I know because I was a personal recipient of all of the help and support and coaching and love that you gave me. But what is it inside of you? What is this trait that I wish the whole world had? Because if we did, we'd be a lot happier place.
So I'll say, I think as a young girl, I used to read a lot of student nursing books. I became a nurse. So nurses want to help people. I mean, at the end of the day, what do you want to become a nurse for? I remember being asked that question as I was a teenager, saying that's what I wanted to go to college for. I want to help people. I think that also comes from your family. I think my mother was big at volunteering. My mother's a huge volunteer at the church, at the Rosary Society, at the political organization, you name it. She was always volunteering. And that in volunteering, you're helping others and you're doing that as a volunteer. As I, continue to do today. And those are the things though that connect people to each other. So when you give of yourself and you do get back, so you get back joy. And I remember this
So
with my
beautiful.
daughter. My daughter struggled when she was 16 years old, which is not uncommon in that age in high school, the junior year, a lot of pressure. Friends are all, like difficult with each other sometimes. And she didn't feel good about herself. And I remember telling another friend of mine at a lunch one day, and she goes, you should have her volunteer. Have a volunteer at the local, they called Adventures in Learning. It's a school after school support program for the lower socioeconomic kids in the neighborhood. And she did, and she felt so good about herself. It gave her that level of confidence that she was helping second graders learn science, and she did it. And you need that. You need to build your confidence some way or the belief in yourself, and you feel good. And so in giving back, you receive the gift of giving yourself. You do.
Yeah, you sure do. And if I was to understand or learn from your epiphanies in this transition, is there an epiphany you had about yourself personally through this transition from your professional life into your third, as I call this phase of life? What is it that you've learned about
Yeah.
yourself?
It's part of like you used the phrase earlier. My favorite phrase at work was to make it happen. I do
Yeah.
believe that throughout your life, whether it's just this new retirement phase as well, is that you're responsible for taking charge of your own life. We often would mentor young women, or men in their career paths, and say, you have to take charge of your own career. You can't wait for your manager to recommend something. Maybe they'll see something, maybe they won't, but maybe you want to go on a different path. So you have to take charge of that. And when you get to this new phase, you still have to do that same thing. So you have to figure out, what is it that you want to do? Do you want to be connected with other people? Well, volunteer, join a nonprofit, pick up a sport. Pickleball is a very social sport. Tennis, you name it, golf. If you want to meet people, I go out golfing. I meet people all of the time because I'm willing to go out as a one-some. I'll join any group. If my husband can't make it, I'll just go. It's okay. You meet people that way. And you also just, you just put yourself out there. I have become the concierge of my friend group in my neighborhood. We call ourselves the birthday group. There's
Oh,
eight
I
of
love that. And by the way, for all of you out there, this does not surprise me one bit. I love that. You're the concierge
years.
leader.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm a concierge. And so I've been away in Florida for 3 months because I'm a bit of a snowbird these days. That's the other joy of being, in this lifestyle. You can just move and go anywhere you want. And so my birthday group was a group of 8 women that we've been friends, for quite some time. And we all go after each other's birthdays and trips, and of course, lots of things. And so I was talking to my HBA Women in Healthcare Give Back group. That's another group I stay involved with the HBA. They're a great group of women who are together because they want to give back. So they've identified a nonprofit to work with, and we picked the floating hospital, and so they're involved in volunteering there and doing pickleball fundraisers, and so it's a lot of fun for them to be involved, and they so I was talking to one of them on a call the other day, and this is how you network, right? She told me she went to see this great show in New York called Masquerade. Masquerade is the Phantom of the Opera. It's a live experience. You walk through these rooms and like experiences, and I'm like, okay, I'll do that. Let me get my birthday group to go. So we're going in May.
Oh, that is awesome.
That's fun, right? Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I can't remember if it was Arthur Brooks. He wrote From Strength to Strength. And one of the things he said is that when we get into this phase, having that community of friends is
Mhm.
so important
Mhm.
for so many different reasons. But the ironic part too is that you named it. And so for those of you that have a women's group out there, naming it actually gives a sustainable it makes it sustainable for much longer, and that group lasts longer. And was even a longevity component to this versus just random friends and groups that didn't have a name. So I love that you called it the birthday group.
Yeah.
Um, so, Charlene, what advice or what recommendations do you have for someone that is, in this phase of life that's kind of struggling and they're in this like messy middle of figuring out who they want to be, or someone thinking about going into this phase of life? What advice would you give them?
You got to find things that interest you and then pursue them. What do you like to do? It's funny, there was a man on Next Door Neighbor that recently put a post out saying, to this point, like, I, recently retired. I don't know what to do with myself. Does anybody have ideas or suggestions as to what I could do? I gave him, I said, well, what are your interests? What do you like to do? Do you like culture? Do you like sports? Do you like, just eating out? What is it that you enjoy doing? And find groups that you could be a part of and join. Like, you've got to join things. So that takes a level of initiation. You have to be an initiator, and you have to decide that I'm going to take charge of this and I will join something because I have an interest in it. And if you want to volunteer, I have another friend of mine who struggled with her retirement. She's part of my birthday group. And I remember saying this to her, well, join a nonprofit. She's a top, she was a lawyer and a CPA. She has so many skills that anybody would really value. And she struggled with knowing how to find one and where to go. And finally, I think it was through a friend, somebody said, would you join this board? And she did. And so she feels that sense of, intellectual stimulation, which is nice. I need that. Like, I need sports outlets. So I play sports. we all need intellectual stimulation. I know I do. So, being the chair of a board, you have to be very strategic, you have to be very engaging, you have to be motivating, inspiring, just what any leader would need to be. And so, those are the things that can help, can help get you there.
You are just a role model in this space, and I think a book is in your future. Seriously, I just, from the moment I ever met you, I was just like, I want to learn from her because you're always 2 glasses full to begin with, and
Mm,
then, with the make it happen. And there's a lot of introverts out there that, may not be able to see the forest through the trees, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't stop pursuing your interests or finding your hobbies or whatever. But
mhm,
I mean, I have a laundry list, like a whole page long of everything that you have talked about. And I think the one thing that really I'm so proud of you for and that I've learned from is that you found a way to accept the pinnacle in your career
mhm.
at that point in time. And you didn't mention any goals, you didn't any outcomes. Like, you didn't there wasn't like something you were still striving for. You were just like, okay, I have done an awesome job. I've been a phenomenal industry leader. I have given back, and this is the time. And there never is a right time to meet higher. But I just love and finding that acceptance. So I mean, that is just such a
Yeah,
wonderful example.
I agree. I think that the word acceptance is so key. And I'm no longer striving. You said it. And I wrote that down the other day when I was thinking about, like what's different about this phase of your life. I'm no longer striving. Like, I'm not trying to become the HOA president or,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah. It's
I'm not
any
trying to
president.
I'm
Yeah.
not trying to start a new company or something else that would be even, grander, say. I am okay with, who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have a full life. Like, I'm very busy all the time,
Yes, you are. A few listeners out there, I think it took a good month before we were able to schedule this. That's how busy Charlene's retirement schedule is. Um, well, Charlene, I am just thrilled that you took the time to spend with us. And can I ask if I have you on sooner rather than later again? Because there's so many other things that I learned from you. And being connected, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, is really, really important in this phase of life. So I'm going to have you back on sooner rather than later to
Sounds
discuss
good.
connectivity as well. And, the other thing I just want to mention too is that you reached out to a dear friend to help you with Maureen Reagan to help you transition. You talked about controlling your narrative, which is something that I've always learned from you as well, and I think it's really important if you have, like I did, little issues with what other people think. Then take control of it, and you control the narrative. And so, thank you for sharing that. And that the point of what interests you and defining what that is and crystallizing it and prioritizing it is also so important at this stage, because I know when I got thrown into this stage of life, I knew what I liked to do, but it wasn't authentic. And I think what you have recognized, or helped me recognize, is that everything that you've always done in your life is authentic, and what interests you is truly something that's in your DNA. So thank you for reminding me of that as well. So, to all of you listeners out there, before we go, I just want to say this. Transitions like this are really hard. And letting go of who you were to figure out who you are now, which Charlene has done so gracefully, is a big shift. And if you're feeling uncertain and a little lost, you're not alone. But as Charlene mentions, this is where something new begins, because when you understand who you really are and create a life of joy, fulfillment, and freedom, you don't have to do it alone. So,
Mhm.
podcasters, until next time, keep creating a life that feels meaningful to you. Thank you and have an awesome day, everyone. Bye.